Hey everybody, welcome back. Trevor Lane here. You can follow me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane. Keith Smith joining me at Keith Smith NBA. Zion Williamson getting closer to coming back. He's now cleared for contact drills, but doesn't matter for the Pelicans' second worst record in the NBA at this point. Have they dug themselves a hole that is too deep already?
Yeah, they're not coming back from that. They're not going to be a
Okay.
playoff team. There are two things you have to look at early in the season when a team is way down in the standings. One is how much ground do they have to make up just in terms of games back. That's already a pretty big ask for the Pelicans. Let me make sure I get the right number here. They are
They
they're
are,
7.5 games out of six and 4.5 out of 10.
that's a
That's a
lot.
lot
For a team that's
considering
not
we're a
that
month into
good,
this
that's a
season.
lot. And I mean, Brandon Ingram's been
Correct.
missing too. And he's back in
Yeah.
action now, but he's lost some games as well. But when you're a team like the Pelicans, it's already kind of teetering on the edge heading into the season. This kind of
Yep.
start can kind of be the end, really.
Yeah, that is you need to rip off an eight
Yeah,
game win streak just to get in the conversation. The other thing you have to look at too, though, is how many teams you have to pass to get into that contention. And they're 14th in the West. So that's an awful lot of teams you got to move past to get there. So now, does it matter standings wise? No. Does it matter everything else
yeah.
wise? Yes. You need to get Zion on the court, one, just to get Zion on the court, but you also need to be in a position where you're getting a look at. You made these offseason changes and added Jonas Valanciunas. You added Devonte Graham. How does what you envisioned as your starting group look together on the court so you can start making some long-term decisions? Now, my question is that leads into this next part is, do you want David Griffin making your
That's right.
long-term decisions? Is he going to be there? Is he the guy you want saying, all right, and I'm just throwing this out there because I don't know that it's necessarily the case, but Brandon Ingram really doesn't work for what we want to be. Let's trade him. Whereas the guy who takes over, if Griffin isn't there after, could say, no, wait, Griffin does work.
Ingram.
Not
Yeah.
Griffin, Ingram does work. Let's keep it. We should have kept him and those kind of things. So that's where it gets a little tricky. But yeah, when you're 7.5 out of an assured playoff spot in six, or you're 4.5 out of the last playing spot a month into the season, it's about, all right, we got to figure out what works the rest of the
So I
way.
mean, good though that Zion's coming back, of course, from injury. That's
Oh,
that's great.
100%.
Great for the NBA, great for the Pelicans, maybe good for David Griffin. We'll see. But don't expect them to get into the playoff race or anything like that. Jumping over
Nope.
to Brooklyn, little update on Kyrie Irving. Steve Nash says that he does still talk to Kyrie, but they don't talk about basketball. What they talk about the
Yeah,
weather, I'm guessing, or things of
life in
life in
Brooklyn.
general.
Yeah. My guess is this is Steve Nash is basically saying, look, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
pressure this guy to, you know, come back and play and those kind of things. And I'm sure to some extent there has to be a thought process of, I've said this before, he's not
Yeah.
here. We don't know if he will be here. We need to just move on. That's kind of, you've heard the Clippers and the Nuggets talk about that with Kawhi Leonard and
Mhm.
Jamal Murray respectively, is they're not here, so we can't talk about that. It's not like the Pelicans with Zion's coming back and whenever we'll get there, or the Lakers with LeBron will be
Right.
back in a few more days. Like, you can start to, you factor that into your analysis and color and how you think about your season. If you're the Nets, I'm sure it's just a little bit of a, hey, the guys we got are the guys we got, and we gotta move forward with that. But Steve Nash also, I'm sure that's one of his players. He's not gonna just leave him completely
Mhm.
out to dry. He's gonna make sure he's checking in and making sure Kyrie's doing okay and all those things. I mean, this to me says more of Steve Nash. X's and O's, there's still definitely some figuring things out, and it's been painted over a little just because of how good his players are. But he gets this job,
Mhm.
right? So much of being a coach is communicating and taking care of your guys and those kind of things. And Steve Nash, former point guard, former all-time great teammate that everybody loved, he gets it. And that's why I didn't have a lot of doubt that he would be uh, a good head coach. I thought he'd be a very good head coach because the X's and O's stuff, he'll figure that out and get the right guys on staff to help with. It's everything else we knew he was going
I
to
mean,
excel
Nets
at.
fans have expressed some frustration from what I've seen with the X's and O's and stagnation in the offense and things like that. But that's kind of what happens if a team is not quite living up to expectations. Trust me, I know a little
Sure.
bit about that with the Lakers. But I will say, from a management perspective, this is also a smart answer from Steve Nash. Even if all they talk is basketball, this is the right answer to give. Because if you say, oh, we talk a lot of basketball or whatever, it becomes a bigger story. And then it leads to follow-up questions. Whereas Steve Nash saying, we don't even
Yep.
talk basketball, it just shuts it down.
Yeah. Then it becomes if there was a follow up, it could be those conversations are personal. Where if it's, wait, you talk about
Yeah,
that, like, what does he think about the
exactly.
team? What do what do you think about this and that? And that's where, yeah, this is just, I mean, let's face it too. Steve Nash knows a thing or two about manipulating
Hmm.
the media to make sure the message he wants out there gets out there with that. Hey, you just reminded me, just because you said you may know a thing or two. Um, People have asked Celtics Lakers
Yep.
on Friday. We will have some form of
Yep.
friendly bet
That's right.
on the game. It's probably going to involve. Now, we already discussed it. I own no Lakers gear. Trevor doesn't own Celtics gear, as one could
Right.
probably expect. But we both do own. I own purple stuff. Trevor owns green stuff. So it'll probably be some form of, at some point, one of us will pay off the losing end of that bet by wearing the other team's primary color, and we'll make it work, and we'll
Yep.
have some fun with that. So just in case anybody's wondering, we will have some fun with that game
And
on
Keith has
Friday.
agreed to come on the LakersNation.com post-game
Yes,
show after Lakers versus Celtics with me. So that's going to be, I think that will be a first, Keith. I think that'll be the first time for the post-game show that I've had someone
I
representing the
think so.
opponent on the show. So that's going to
Yeah.
be a lot of fun. If there's ever a chance that Keith and I are going to kill each other, that would be it, right? That would be the one
Yeah.
scenario.
If Rajon Rondo hits a game winner at the buzzer, I'm not coming on the show. Because it's just going to be however long your show lasts, me complaining about that happening again. So let's just cancel that appearance now. Any other result, I will be there. I will either gloat a little or happily
That's
eat
right.
some crow. But between our fantastic 500 level basketball teams that the rest of the NBA is like, no one
I'm
cares.
looking forward to it. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun on
No, it's
Friday. Let's jump over to
these teams played games when they were
oh yeah,
terrible and they were still
absolutely.
fun. Like it's Celtics Lakers. It just means more than any other matchup in the NBA. That's
That's
just
right.
the
We're only
reality.
slightly biased there, but yes.
Yeah, yeah. There's some
Celtics
exceptions.
Lakers. We mean more than anyone else. Uh,
Yep.
if a guy
Not
who was
wrong.
almost a Laker, Buddy Hield, changing agents. I don't know that this
Yeah.
means a ton that Buddy Hield switches his agent over, but it's something to note. Sometimes you see players do this ahead of making a move. It's Diana Day is going to become his agent of Icona Agency, and I think it's interesting. You know, his former agent was Rob Pelinka for the Lakers, and then he
Mhm.
was managed by Brandon Rosenthal. So maybe there's some dissatisfaction with the way things were handled in terms of the almost trade to the Lakers. That's me speculating,
Sure.
but regardless, Buddy Hield gets a new agent, and most likely, I mean, Buddy Hield, if we were to make a list of, I don't know, the top 10 players to be traded during the season, Buddy Hield's got to be pretty high up on that list.
Yeah, I would think so. Just from the standpoint of it's been so close,
Yeah,
feels like for about 3 years running now. So yeah, and you're now so far past him being the primary piece in the DeMarcus
right.
Cousins trade. That no longer matters. Nobody who was involved in that trade's even still there. Running that team, as far as the
Right.
day-to-day
Not
basketball
ownership.
ops. So yeah, that's not a thing. So yeah, I again, we talked about this in our last one. If the reason why the Kings aren't probably moving Marvin Bagley is because they're holding out, because right now they're in the play-in and what that could mean. So that's probably going to factor
Hmm.
into where they're at. But we've also heard at times he's not exactly happy. He's kind of now the fourth guard on that team because Halliburton is obviously taken over the starting
Yeah.
spot. And then you have Davion Mitchell, who everybody loves, stepping in there and playing well, but he's still playing a lot. He's still just doing what he does,
Buddy buckets.
shooting a bunch of 3 pointers and yeah, doing his thing. So yeah, I think they've made it work. So I think you're right because it's just been
Mm.
there for years running now. But I'm not sure that that's necessarily the direction that the Kings go.
All right, we do have a transaction that took place to get into. This has actually
Yeah.
happened. The Lakers waived Sekou Doumbouya, apparently rehabbing a foot injury, and they wanted somebody who was healthy in there, and they signed Chaundee Brown off of the South Bay Lakers G League squad. Signed him to a two-way contract. Looked pretty good for the Lakers in summer league, and so yeah, there's a lot of people who are kind of excited about Chaundee Brown getting that opportunity. But Keith, I did have a lot of people asking the question of, well, what happens now with Sekou Doumbouya's contract? Does that sit on the Lakers' books? Does that factor into the luxury tax? What does that look like for a two-way player?
Yeah, nothing. There's no cap hit for a
Mm-hmm.
two-way player at all. So there's nothing on the books. They pay him whatever their agreed to guaranteed amount was. I don't have that in front of me there, but that's just salary paid to him. There's no form of cap hit, no form of luxury tax hit, and this is the unfortunate part of life as a two-way
Mm-hmm.
player. If you are hurt and probably not going to make it back, and maybe not a big part of the developmental plan for you, like for example, we saw Jaden Scrub with the Clippers. They drafted him and signed him to a 2-year two-way when he was injured, because the idea was we want to get something out of him in the
Right.
subsequent years down the line. Well, Dumboy is not, the Lakers have no investment
Yeah.
there.
They just picked them
So
up.
if he can't help now, yeah, move on from him and get a guy in who can help for a team that is in need of just healthy bodies that can, take the floor. So yeah, this makes sense since there with that one. It's it's just, that's unfortunate. That's just the way it goes. But generally what this means is if you're hurt with a team and then waived, you can still have access to that team's
Yes.
facilities, still work out there, still rehab there, and all that. So my guess is Dumboya just sticks around the Lakers, does his thing. He'll probably eventually, when he's ready to play, either they'll bring him back on a two-way because they can do that, or he'll probably likely land with South Bay in the G League and plays way back to the NBA through there.
Speaking of landing with that, I didn't have this on my, but you just reminded me. Stanley Johnson,
Stanley
yeah,
Johnson,
landed with
yeah.
South Bay with the Lakers. So popping up again. I mean, this is a wing player that we had that had some promise at one point in the NBA. That is obviously diminished quite a bit, but we'll see if he can battle his way back in the G League.
What's interesting is I had somebody say to me, they're like, well, this is cool because then if he looks good, the Lakers have the inside track on signing him. And
Not
that's not
really.
true. That's not how it works. Every player in the G League that's not on an assignment, or not a two-way player. So an assignment is you send the young guy down, the guy's down
Right.
there playing with the team, but he's really signed to the NBA team. Or, of course, a two-way player is signed to the combo contract between the two teams. Every other player in the G League is an NBA free agent, so they can sign with any
It's
team
like
they want.
signing somebody off the
There are teams
practice
that will,
squad in the NFL. Yeah.
yeah, basically, yeah, more or less. Now it gives the Lakers the inside track as far as seeing him
Yep.
every day, and where, just for, if anybody doesn't know, South Bay plays at the Lakers practice facility, so they are is connected as an NBA and G League team is in the league. So yeah, so it is very they're going to see him on a day-to-day basis with that. Have I ever told you my favorite Stanley Johnson
No,
story
I didn't
from
know
the
you
summer
have a
league?
Stanley Johnson story. So
So
that's something
yeah.
right there.
So this was when he was with the Pistons. This was at Orlando Summer League, which was, if folks remember it was played in the Magic's practice court. So there was no fans. It was only media and
Mm-hmm.
team personnel in there, and then agents and scouts and things like that. So I was actually sitting next to Stan Van Gundy, and his dad, who his dad is a very
Yeah.
famous, I believe he was a high school coach for a number of years. And it was just a running commentary between the two of them of everything that happened in the game. So anyway, Stanley Johnson, it was in the second half of
Mm-hmm.
Summer League game. Stanley Johnson was in his second year. He had a player. I'm not going to say who the other player was because that would be unfair to that player, but he had him trapped in the corner, really pressing up on him, playing very physical defense. And the player threw the ball off Stanley Johnson out of bounds because that was the only
Right.
thing he could do. And the player turned and said to Stanley Johnson, he said, "Damn, man, why are you defending so hard at Summer League? You're already in the league." And Stanley Johnson just smiled and ran away. And Stan Van Gundy leans over and says, "Yep, and that's why you'll never be in the league," about that other player. So that's my favorite Stanley Johnson story. I just, guy works really hard. He's just a
Yeah.
limited offensive player more than
Well,
anything
I
else.
mean, we'll see if he can battle his way back. You never know. Sometimes it takes players a little while. I mean,
Yeah.
look at Cameron Payne, right? I mean, it's
Yep.
possible to battle your way back. So
Yep.
never know.
And if you can bring one defined skill to the NBA, if you're good enough at that one defined skill, it can be enough to
Yep.
keep you on a roster. And if he really embraced that, I'm just going to be a lockdown 6'7" switchable perimeter defender type, he might be able
Yep.
to make it work.
Never know. Never know. So best of luck to him.
Hey, one other thing we didn't put it on the rundown, but I thought just because we're kind of on a Lakers topic, thought it was interesting. DeMar DeRozan's comments,
Oh, yeah.
Chris Haynes, he thought he was done, thought he was going home, thought he was going to be a
Yes.
Laker. I really I thought that was kind of interesting, and clearly I think we all thought that was the way certain things were going this offseason before the Westbrook trade kind of materialized very
This
late
is a
in the
bigger
game.
topic for another show, maybe even something I'll put over on the Lakers Nation YouTube channel. But something you and I need to discuss is looking at the Lakers options in hindsight, which is always 2020. But you have two players who thought they were Lakers in Buddy Hield and DeMar DeRozan. You've got Russell Westbrook, who actually became a Laker. So you had three paths to take right there. And then you also had the possibility of just keeping the team they had from last year. So that's a decision that we can kind of revisit and break down in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of keeping the team that they could have had, did you see this little Dennis Schroder thing?
No, but I'm
Did you-
guessing he said at the end of the day.
No, nothing he said or did. It's Celtics fans are calling it Schroder History Week. So the Celtics play on Wednesday tonight. We're recording on Wednesday. They play the Atlanta Hawks. On Friday, they play the Lakers, and on Saturday they play the Thunder.
So it's a Schroder
three former
revenge
teams
tour
all in a row. Yeah, that's what people are calling it, the Revenge Tour, Schroder History Week, whatever they want to call it. But yeah, that's kind of that. I wouldn't even begin to know how to find out if it's true or not, but it feels like that's got to be the first time that's happened where a player's going against his three former teams 3 games in a row. Non-playoffs, obviously, because that could be a thing. But yeah, I thought that was
somebody
interesting.
who does the math can figure out what the odds are of that actually happening in an NBA season, particularly with Western Conference, Eastern Conference, that type of thing. But interesting that that's going to be taking place, and I hope that, for my sake, I hope that Schroeder takes out all of his vengeance on the Hawks and then has a nice frosty shooting night on Friday, because otherwise, I think Lakers fans will be. It's been bad. It'll be on another level if Dennis Schroeder goes for like 20 points or something like that on Friday.
Well, now I want nothing more in my life. So let's put it this way. I'm going to join you on Lakers Nation post game show on Friday. If it's with Dennis Schroeder going down, oh boy, I might come in there. I might be pulling off some of the champ is here stuff.
The
and
chat
all kinds
will
of
be
sense.
On another level. It will be on another level.
No, it's funny though. What's funny is Celtics fans would say that's completely disingenuous, because I've not been overly kind to Dennis Schroeder, even in his good moments. I'm trying to be a little bit more balanced, but he is let's just say it's not my favorite style of play.
Then you will
NBA.
fit in right just fine on the Lakers Nation post-game show on Friday. All right, everybody. I think that wraps it up from here. Appreciate all of you joining, and make sure, again, we love the growth that we've seen in this channel. Appreciate all of the support. If you haven't done so yet, please make sure you do subscribe right here to the NBA Front Office Show. And then, really important, turn on those notifications so you get notified every time we put out a new video. Thanks, everybody. Till next time. See ya, and stay safe.